I saw Maxine with the 3X's today.
Oh yeah. See, I wish that was an X-Men movie. All these X things. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing?
Honestly, it was really good. I did not realize it was part of a trilogy and it was the last one. So spoiler alert, I'm spoiled. But there was a part where they crushed a guy in a car. Spoiler alert, it was Kevin Bacon. Whatever, don't worry about it. Anyway.
It's always Kevin Bacon.
I know, they crushed him in a car, and then afterwards they let the dogs go and eat the blood that came out of the car. And the only thing I could think, and I tweeted about this,
Poor dogs,
is like, what irresponsible pet owners? There's oil in that car, and there's there's gas in that car. You're letting your dogs eat the blood and the oil and the gas. Assholes. If they weren't the villain already, I mean, they are now, because they let their dogs eat gas.
I mean, that's kind of a low-hanging fruit, but yes, like if any sort of animal abuse, like you're automatically the villain.
See that? Like, see, he's been on this podcast for 5 seconds and he agrees with me.
Yeah. Well, see, it's like, even if I'm just like walking, like if I'm driving down a road in a neighborhood and I see people walking their pets and they don't keep them close to them, or like if a car's coming by, even if I'm going slow, so I give them time, they don't step over with their dog or nothing. They just let their dog be in La La Land, or they don't have their dog on a leash. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That's true. I mean, let's just be honest. We're all going to come together and agree. Your dog can eat Kevin Bacon, just not Kevin Bacon and oil.
No.
That's not a good meal, guys.
No, what's amazing about this whole talking about Kevin Bacon in this Maxine movie is that Kevin Bacon was in X-Men First Class, which brings us back to what this whole thing is about, which is, of course, Nightcrawler.
I knew you were going to do it.
I mean, I had to. If I have Kevin Bacon right in front of me, I've got to do it, right? I mean, that's what Kira Sedgwick said. Welcome back, everybody, to Simply Amazing, the Nightcrawler podcast, where two girls, and this time a guy is joining us.
Lisa, now it sounds like a porno. You gotta stop. It sounds like a porno, and I hate it here.
Did you bring the cup? Because if you didn't bring the cup, then
Lisa,
we have nowhere to go from here.
Listen, I'm gonna need to leave my own podcast right now. My bed's right there. I'm gonna go recover. Well, you get.
Here's the funny thing, like, I can't see our guest. He doesn't have a camera on, so I'm like, I don't know if he's like, yay or not. So we'll just introduce him really quickly and get him involved in it. Yeah, I'm Lisa, aka the OG Nocturne. Of course, with me as always is the fabulous, lovely. I'm pointing. It's kind of funny, like I'm pointing.
Yeah, it's the wrong way. It's gotta be your way.
I can't figure this shit out. I'm in my 40s. Give me a break. Lauren's here with me as well, and we are also joined by someone we found on Reddit. 3 months too late. Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks you guys for having me on.
Awesome. We're excited to have you on because you posted, I saw you posted it in, I think, more than one place. I feel like you posted it in the X-Men subreddit and in the Nightcrawler subreddit, this crazy theory about the Winding Way. And it's, I mean, you're going to have to go through it all and explain it in your own words because it's very involved and very interesting. But I want to bring up that as a part of what's made me very interested in this as well is they just came out with the trailer for the Agatha show that's coming out on Disney Plus, which has this whole idea of the Witch's Road, which seems very eerily similar to the Winding Way, even though I know it was in the Scarlet Witch book, whatever. I don't believe in any Maximoff canon that happened after the mutant thing was retconned. Everything since then has been just a fairy tale. It doesn't exist in my life, but anyway. But yeah, please, we'd love to hear you talk about your theory and give us everything because it's so well researched and well put together. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So Nightcrawler's The Winding Way is a theory that I came up with about 2 years ago. I did post it to Reddit about around that same time. But it's evolved significantly since then, although the basic premise has been more or less the same. So Nightcrawler's The Winding Way is kind of a theory that is, well, literally what it is on the tin. It is literally Nightcrawler. When he was a child, he did get his basically he got his soul ripped in half by his adopted mother, Margali Zardos. who then used the magical portion of it to form the Winding Way, which is her magical, the source of her magical power. So that's the basic premise, and it's kind of expanded outward since then. As I've kind of researched more and more stuff has come out, obviously the X-Men Origins Blue changed a lot about this theory and kind of opened a whole can of worms of it. But yeah, so...
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like a lot of stuff that's, you say you came up with this theory, you started this theory a couple of years ago, and a lot of stuff that's happened in the past couple of years seems to really support it, like the whole situation with the Hope Sword and, and the idea of, like Kurt's really the only, other than like maybe Ilyana Rasputin, like there are the characters where they specifically point out their soul and the meaning of soul. There's like something about it, and Kurt's like one of the only characters that has that too. So yeah, I think it's entirely plausible. I mean, at this point, we know that, we know for a fact that literally there is not a single thing in Kurt's life that has been left to chance because of destiny.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this theory absolutely leverages that fact that, Destiny was absolutely the one who was behind the entire situation. She was the one who basically caused Kurt, because she was the one who handed Kurt off to Margali as per the Origins Blue retcon changed it. Because I think originally, if I'm remembering correctly, Kurt's origin obviously has been through a bunch of different changes over the years, but like the most recent one before this was basically that I think it was like Azazel caught Kurt because this was after Mystique threw him off of the waterfall, and that got retconned. But basically, I think it was Azazel who gave it to Margali, and now it's Destiny who gave it to Margali.
Yes. Okay. So not to just kind of throw this in there, but yes, it was Azazel in that comic, and it was so dumb because he's like hanging out under the cliff, just waiting for his son to be thrown off of it. I mean, have a conversation. Just go talk to her and be like, okay, I'll take the fucking baby. I'll take him away.
Yeah.
Number one.
How did he know that it would be that waterfall? Like, what did Destiny tell him about that too? Was she also involved with? I mean,
he's. You know what? It's thank God it's gone. We don't have to deal with it. The other part is that Chuck Austen started hinting that Margali and Azazel had like a relationship that was more than just like, was more than just he gave her the baby. It was like they had an actual relationship, and possibly Amanda might be Azazel's daughter. And it was just like, oh my God, can we possibly make the Amanda thing worse? Like, what the fuck?
I hate it.
Yeah, no, that honestly, the whole Azazel thing was it's a mess. But so basically, where was I going with this? Hang on.
You're good.
No, we were talking about Destiny and how Destiny kind of like laid it all out. Yeah.
So basically what happened is because Destiny was the one who gave Kurt to Margali, like she obviously would have known, like obviously that, Margali was going to do this to Kurt. Like if anyone was going to see that was going to happen, Destiny would have absolutely seen this being a thing. So it kind of, because if not, then like it kind of raises the question anyways of why did Destiny even take Kurt to Margali?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's obviously some sort of reason for it. And based off of Margali's past history, we're dealing with someone who consistently over the past several decades has shown that the only thing that she, prioritizes above anything, even the lives of her own children, is magical power. So clearly she didn't like just adopt Kurt for no reason.
But so what do you think was the benefit to Destiny for that? Was it just simply that Destiny knew because like there was this thing that she could leverage that like Margali would actually raise this weird fucking blue baby? Or was there something else that like you think Destiny saw that was more powerful that would come of it? Because like we're talking, you're saying Margali is a very questionable character. I mean, she's like, she clearly was a good enough mother to raise the children she did, who didn't fucking die. But of course, I mean, Kurt killed him, but whatever. But like, yeah, I'm just, she would be a questionable character, not exactly the first person I would be handing my kid to.
Yeah, no. So there is actually a wider implication on this. And for this, I actually need to refer to the data page on in Legion of X, number 10, I think. It's either number 9 or number 10. But this data page specifically is talking about like what all Doctor Strange knows about the Winding Way. And spoiler alert, it's not a lot. It's not much more than what we know, which is, again, kind of suspicious for the Winding Way that we don't, like, even at this point of things, we have basically next to no idea what happened with the Winding Way, or like where it comes from, how it operates. Even people like Doctor Strange don't know that much about it. But at the bottom of the data page, Doctor Strange is talking about how, he found this one ancient description of the Winding Way from way back in the like some ancient tome or something. And as I was reading the actual description of it, I found it very interesting because he said like the wording on it was specifically, imagine a place that is not actually there. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a no place. That's like a Krakoan no place, which Enigma, which my whole thought on what Destiny was planning on here was basically take everything that she claimed about Azazel being the reason why Kurt was born and why he was born to stop Azazel, throw that out. Like, Azazel was the bonus. He wasn't the main target. Yeah. The main target was Enigma.
Okay.
So basically the idea is that Destiny was trying to orchestrate this, basically a child who could basically kill a Dominion or something of that status. Whether that be through the existence of the Hope Sword or through some other means.
Is it because of the connection to magic?
So that could be a potential. So are you talking magic as in sorcery or magic as in the character?
No, magic as in like sorcery, as in like the Winding Way. Because it's kind of funny because, in the very beginning of Krakoa, one of the first things that, they fight and that Celine brings up is like, mutants, we can fight robots, we can fight humans, but like we don't have a defense against magic. And then that leads into the whole thing with the Scarlet Witch that happens later. But that's kind of interesting that you say, like, because then having a character who has, who's a mutant but still has that magic connection, could be very powerful.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting that you bring that up because it is actually, I think it's Ex Infernus that establishes this, but basically it says that Nightcrawler he doesn't have any magical power as of this point. Obviously, like, even with this theory aside, like, Kurt doesn't have any sort of magical power to him innately. But it is stated that he is magically attuned, which is kind of an interesting thing, why he would be magically attuned, but not magically, he doesn't have any sort of magical power to him. That's kind of an odd, like, thing to have, I guess.
Yeah, that makes me think of, so in the Star Wars original extended universe that Disney wiped when they got it, Leia was originally a Jedi, like, she fully trained, in the original Dark Empire. She even saves Luke after he turns to the Emperor side, or the cloned Emperor side, because he's a little bit of a dumbass there. Anyways, so then in the movies, they decide, you know what, we're going to make her a general, or keep her a general. Isn't that amazing? And on top of that, by the way, isn't it amazing that she's force sensitive, you guys? And I'm saying here, like, what do you mean she's only force sensitive? So I feel like I hear what you're saying with Kurt, like, how can he just basically be magic attuned, but he has no abilities? My guess is when you already have a character that's a mutant, which has all these things that already go along with it, right? In terms of even writing the story and the character, and you add magic on top of that, but there's got to be other, like, mutant characters that have magic. Like, Wanda was one at one point until they
and Ileana is one.
Pixie's another.
Pixie, yeah. So, like, yeah. So that just is pretty well saying, what the fuck, Marvel?
Yeah. So, and it's also one of those things where, and I lost my place again. Hang on a minute. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So basically,
I'll say I do it all the time on here. Lisa's just like, all right, Laura, we'll come back to you in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's okay. And then I'll talk about something stupid for an hour, and then suddenly we're talking about
So, that's the other thing. So the other thing that's also suspicious about Margali, we weren't talking about Margali, but that's okay. The other thing that is specifically suspicious about Margali is that she tried to adopt Scarlet Witch back when she was.
Yes, that point you made in the Reddit post was very interesting to me. And I knew Lisa, I was wondering what Lisa thought about that, because technically, if she had succeeded, then Wanda and Kurt would be siblings too.
Which would make it more likely for him to fuck her, which would make me happy. So there you go.
Lisa, no! Come on now. Have some limits. Something.
I mean, so here's the thing. Like, it's kind of funny because I'm going to take this to talk about the Agatha show, which again, we only have a trailer. It almost feels like Agatha is a Margali type character more than an Agatha Harkness type character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the comics, Agatha is really more like she's kind of creepy, but she's really more of like a mentor or like guardian type figure.
Exactly. She's like, Margali is power hungry. Margali is looking to be looking there's, and it's funny you brought up the Doctor Strange page from Legion of X, and it's interesting you talk about that because going all the way back to the early 80s where we had the annual that was Kurt's birthday where they end up all going to limbo and everything, there is that moment where at first they're with Doctor Strange and he's put like some kind of protection spell over them. And he's surprised because someone is able to teleport through it, and it's Margali. And it's that idea of like this power that she has, this power that she wields is more than just power. It's greater than the powers around her. And not only that, it's a power that only she has access to, and others like they can't even protect themselves against it because there's nothing they can make. Because they're so unfamiliar with it. And that's what the Winding Way is. And again, with the Agatha show, like that's what it seems like the Agatha show is with this whole witches road is like this thirst for power and almost this like all these different witches are going for this power. I'm hoping Margali shows up. I feel like it's not impossible because now, of course, X-Men have been now with, Disney for a while. It's not impossible that Margali or even Amanda might show up in this show. Oh my God, I'd lose my goddamn mind. But yeah, it's, and then the Scarlet Witch part of it, I don't even get me started. I mean, obviously. But, Well, the one thing I do want to point out about magic and what Lauren was saying before about like mutant characters and magic and just in general, from my understanding in the Marvel universe, and I think I'm right, and if I'm not right, correct me. Magic is not something like you can be born with a mutation, you can be born with spider powers, but magic is a learned thing. You can be born with a propensity to learn it and to wield it better, like, or you can have powers like Wanda's powers make her using magic, they go hand in hand. But from my understanding, it's like being a violinist. You can be born with the ability to be a phenom violinist, but maybe you've just never picked up a violin. So that's kind of what my understanding of magic is in the Marvel universe. If you guys disagree,
so it's actually a bit more. I like to use the analogy that basically magic is basically another. It's like science, but it's a different logic system. Like it would be like comparing physics to philosophy. Like they're both logical, but they're different. They're rarely mutually compatible, and they're very much so like two different things that don't always get along, but can get along, but also just kind of exist in the same space. And while there are individuals like mutants who can be born with a propensity for magic, there are also, magical creatures. You have, whether it be like Pixie, for example. Pixie is literally half pixie. She is, she's both the daughter of I believe it's Mastermind that she's the daughter of, and then also a pixie from I don't know if it's Otherworld or some other magical dimension, but
I think
it's one of those things. But yeah, she does technically
Avalon or whatever.
Avalon, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and once again, I've completely lost my track here. Hang on. It's fine.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's okay. Your thoughts can be the winding way. It's the winding way episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It winds and it winds and it winds, you know. So getting a bit more back on topic, it's one of those things where partially because of the winding way and just how little we know about the winding way. Because at this point, we basically know that it's a magic system, and its most defining feature is that its users go through phases of more power and less power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there are points where they can be basically like nigh unstoppable gods, essentially gods of magic. And then there are other points where they're basically powerless. And there's a cycle to it, but it's also kind of like there's no other magic system in Marvel that works like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially because the winding way is, I believe the term is exocentric. It's basically they get the winding way practitioners get their magic from somewhere else. They don't get it. It's not innate to them. They get it from an external source.
It's very similar to, like, I don't know if you guys, it reminded me too of, like, if you guys watch American Horror Story, the Coven season, with the idea of a supreme, and like there's like a wielder of the winding way. Like there's someone, like you inherit it, or you become the wielder of it. Like you can earn it. Like that's kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other thing about it, is that all the different various practitioners of the winding way are essentially fighting each other for control over, or for more power in the winding way, where basically it's described in the one data page from Legion of X as basically being like a one person wide like track or path. And in order to basically move up in the ranks, you have to knock other people off of the track so that you can take their place. And then only at the very, very top that you actually have like all the magical power, which is basically the analogy used there is that it is it's using light as an analogy for magical power.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when compared to other magic systems from Marvel, like think of Thor's hammer, for example. Like in order to wield the powers of Thor, he has to be worthy. You know, Doctor Strange is a similar sort of thing. You have where Doctor Strange has kind of made a pact with the Vishanti, who are his primary magical benefactors, in order to defend Earth. And so long as he's defending Earth, or so long as he's adhering to the will of the Vishanti, he can use their powers. Similar thing again with Sidorak and the relationship with Juggernaut. You know, in all of these different situations, there is no give or take on the magical power. Like it's not their power escalates and then falls back in waves. It's they either have the power or they don't if they meet the condition of whatever the magic is demanding of them. You know, and so and the only times that we see where someone loses power like that, basically you have the War of the Seven Spheres from Doctor Strange. It's a story from Doctor Strange from back, I want to say it was like in the 90s that came out. And that story was basically the Vishanti went to Doctor Strange asking him to partake in some sort of contest or war on their behalf, and Doctor Strange said no because he didn't want to be away from Earth for so long, and they ended up basically stripping him of like 98% of his powers for a solid chunk of time.
I feel like that was a thing in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. They always took a moment to like depower somebody just for no reason. Yeah.
And so basically kind of building off of that idea that, you know, because if that is the way that magical, you know, externally sourced magic works in Marvel Comics, where, you know, you're making some sort of pact with another being or some sort of, it basically works like kind of like a D&D warlock pact. where you agree to do something or to adhere to some sort of code or adhere to, some sort of condition, you can get the power. So what does that mean when you have a magic system that is perpetually going in this flux of you either have power or you don't, and it goes in cycles. So that kind of makes it kind of makes it seem, it really kind of made it seem to me that the magic is either like the entity behind the Winding Way, if you will, is while they are giving you they are giving the Winding Way practitioners the power, they are also trying to punish them at the same time, and that's kind of an odd place to be in.
It's like, okay, I hear what you're saying totally, but I also have like another kind of metaphor for the Winding Way that kind of makes a whole lot of sense too, because if I recall correctly, only women can be wielders of the Winding Way. A man cannot wield the Winding Way.
That is actually not true.
Oh,
so there is a character in Excalibur, Gravemoss. He is a guy. He is a man. He was actually a practitioner of the Winding Way. Margali ended up killing him at one point.
Okay.
But yes, there
so
are
I was
male.
incorrect.
Yes.
So, but I still want to bring it to the metaphor, which is, like a menstrual cycle, which is kind of what, like, this idea of gaining and losing something every month. Like, as women, we go through moments of, some women get really, like, can't work, can't do whatever. It's just like this, so it's, that kind of, I drew that connection there. So, but you ruined my theory with the man. So what can I do?
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah,
no, I everything.
Especially back in the 80s, that absolutely would have been a thing because of Claremont and because of everything he was doing with Amanda and Margali and all of that. Like, absolutely. But since we've had male members of the Winding Way since then, it kind of ruins that idea.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I think that there could still be like a metaphor or something that could be drawn from it, just because, even though obviously, women go through the most obvious, or at least assigned female at birth, people go through their most obvious, kind of these hormonal cycles. I mean, all humans go through hormonal cycles. It's just, it's for women, it's severe and obvious.
Yeah. So, that was kind of another connection that I made where it was very, for the magic of the Winding Way, it doesn't operate like any other magical source in Marvel Comics. And that was kind of another thing that was very interesting, not only because we don't know what the source of the Winding Way is. Well, okay, we might. There is a little bit of something that I was able to dig up on that. So that may have been kind of is interesting. So in the 8th volume of Avengers, there is a character called Sergeant Zardos. He only debuted like 2 or 3 years ago. His name is Sebastian Zardos. He was the Sorcerer Supreme of the Second World War.
Okay, interesting.
Of Earth. Yes. And it's actually more interesting than that because he was not a practitioner of the Winding Way. In fact, none of his family was a member of the Winding Way up until about his great-grandmother. His great-grandmother was like the last person who had any sort of knowledge of the Winding Way. Okay. And that kind of seems to indicate, because here's the other weird thing about Sergeant Zardos. We know from Uncanny X-Men Annual number 4 that Margali has some sort of connection to the Sorcerer Supreme position, or at least she's familiar with it because she was able to tear the Eye of Agamotto away from Doctor Strange in that annual. And basically when Doctor Strange asks how were you able to do that? Margali basically makes the remark, oh, you weren't the first Sorcerer Supreme of Earth and you won't be the last, but we've never had any sort of confirmation that she was a Sorcerer Supreme of Earth either. But here we have another Zardos member who is a Sorcerer Supreme, and absolutely would have been alive during the time that Margali was around. So, is he more of like a father figure, an older brother, or like an uncle? No idea, but there is some sort of connection there between Sergeant Zardos and Margali. And what this seems to indicate is that the Winding Way, there's two different Winding Ways, essentially. There's the old Winding Way that was practiced by Margali's, or not Margali's, Sebastian Zardos's great-grandmother way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Margali's revival of the Winding Way, which has been more recent. And I don't know whether that would be more because of the way that the Winding Way works, because if the theory isn't right, and this is more of just a method of the Winding Way, is it more that the Winding Way comes and goes in waves? Or is it more of like, is that because there's two different distinct sources? And the other interesting thing about that Sergeant Zardos remarks about the Winding Way, or at least the original Winding Way, is that it originates from Mount Wundagore. Yeah, which is honestly a fancy way of saying that it originates from Chthon, or the Darkhold, or some sort of thing related to Chthon, because Mount Wundagore was the prison of Chthon.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another.
Yeah, and that's another connection to Wanda. But what can I say?
Yeah. So my theory on it is that basically the Winding Way kind of started out, at least in my head, the Winding Way started out as this either dark ritual that basically started out either in the Darkhold or with Chthon himself. And basically the idea is that it binds the soul of a magical creature to an individual or a group of individuals. And you use it you basically turn them into a magical battery. And so my idea was that the original users of the Winding Way originally did this with Chthon. And that's how they were able to keep him beneath Mount Wundagore for at least a little bit longer. But maybe something went wrong a while back, or something happened. Who's to say any which way on that? But there does seem to be a distinction between the old Winding Way and the new Winding Way, for the lack of a better term.
Okay. There's just so much information. It's just
yeah, there's a lot here. Like
it is.
Yeah. So let's see here. So talked about that. So I also bring up in my initial post that Nightcrawler was originally aware of being under the influence, that Margali had ripped his soul in half. And I use the example of in Giant Size X-Men #1, Nightcrawler said that, basically the one condition he gave to Xavier for joining the X-Men was, if you can make me a whole Kurt Wagner. Those are his exact words. If you can make me a whole Kurt Wagner, I will go with you. Which, obviously during the time, nobody knew about this theory, characters like Margali and Amanda didn't even exist during this point in time.
Yeah, it was written by someone.
It.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Lauren?
But you can apply it. That's kind of the fun thing about
absolutely.
Stuff from really early on that, clearly wasn't actually done to connect with it, but now you're kind of like, aha, this kind of works. So even if it wasn't intentional, I can have fun with it.
Oh yeah. Well, and this theory in general is it's a Watsonian theory. It's an in-universe theory. It's not taking into account any meta elements or what the writers would have been doing. So, but basically, I guess the better evidence for this was way back when Kurt first debuted in the X-Men. He was a very different character.
Yes, we did an episode about that. Yes.
Yeah, he was much gruffer. He was much more angry. And then suddenly, around the time that, and obviously this is because of Claremont, but around that time that Claremont takes over, there's suddenly this transition from very, very angry Kurt to this happy-go-lucky, elf that we all know and love.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, what in universe could explain that sudden shift in perspective? And well, my idea, obviously building off of this theory, is that Xavier basically, so my idea is that Xavier went to Doctor Strange for help, and Doctor Strange must have agreed to have his mind wiped afterwards, just because it was a personal matter for Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he had Doctor Strange take a look at Nightcrawler to see if he could do anything about resolving this and trying to fix undo what Margali had done to him. And basically what happened was Doctor Strange came back and said, there's nothing I can do to help him. And that was and basically if he keeps down this road, it's not going to end well for him, essentially. And so I think because Xavier couldn't do anything to help Kurt out, he either decided to it's one of those things where either Nightcrawler asked Xavier to wipe his memories of that and said, hey, I don't want to remember literally one of the worst experiences in my whole life that's kind of shaped my outlook to this point. Or it's one of those things that Xavier himself just decided that rather than letting Kurt basically throw his life away trying to get his soul reunited and be put back together again, it was better for him to just be a hero with the X-Men. As you're talking, I'm building on it. Mm-hmm. And I hope you don't mind if I add a couple things. Okay. Because I can see this tying the whole Stefan story in as well. We'll get back. I have more to talk about Stefan because Stefan actually does play into this theory as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to add what I have, and then we'll go back. So basically, what I was thinking was, a really easy way to do that is Stefan was was possibly maybe some part of a sacrifice that had to be made as part of taking Kurt's soul. And then when Xavier had to redo his memories, he turned his memories into having a memory of killing his brother rather than his brother being part of this whatever situation. But that also encourages Kurt to stay away from Margali and stay away from the family because he thinks that they're angry at him because of Stefan's death.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just go ahead and put in what I think happened with the Stefan thing. So
please.
My idea is that my idea is that Kurt actually had his soul ripped in half much earlier than this.
Okay.
Much earlier than Stefan's dying. I think what Stefan was trying to do was he was trying to figure out a way to undo what Margali did as well. But in a completely isolated and different way than how Xavier went about it, and in a different way than how Amanda will go about it. And we'll talk about that later on. But this is kind of supported by in the third Nightcrawler solo series. Nightcrawler basically learns that the whole reason why Stefan went insane back when he fought him was because he was summoning demons and he had his soul basically devoured by a demon that he ended up summoning. And it's kind of one of those weird mysteries of okay, why was Stefan trying to summon demons? And kind of my idea on that was that Stefan was basically trying to summon demons to use them as test subjects on he was trying to come up with a magical ritual to undo what Margali had done. And this could even be why Stefan had summoned Kurt to him. Because that was another thing, is that Kurt was actually I think it was Stefan who reached out to Kurt and said, hey, come visit me first, and didn't elaborate on that. And then there was that whole, obviously the whole fight went down and Stefan got killed and he was already technically dead. He already had his soul removed. Yeah. But that's my idea on it, is that he was another one. And that's actually why the whole situation with the annual Uncanny X-Men annual number 4 happened, was because Amanda was basically trying to cover for Stefan, because in my theory, I go over that the whole reason why Amanda followed Kurt back from Germany at all, and why she was kind of sticking around him, was she was also trying to figure out how to undo it. And she may have been trying to build off of what Stefan may have learned, or maybe he was just doing it to cover up and make it so that Margali didn't get suspicious of what she was trying to do with Kurt.
It's so funny because it's like, I totally buy that both Zardoz children were like, Mom can't have this much power. We got to fucking do something about it. But Kurt had no idea the whole time, or not no idea, but Kurt was just less aware of the situation than his siblings. But yeah, I totally I see all of this, but okay, can we go back to Enigma and talk about that situation? Because
absolutely,
yeah, because that's kind of like we've talked a lot about the past and old stuff, but like that brings it now to what's happening in the books now. So explain.
Yeah, so obviously there's a whole bunch of stuff that's recently happened in the books regarding the Hope Sword and its creation, regarding basically how that functions in with Enigma. And in my initial post, I did say that Enigma, basically, that Destiny had Kurt to basically kill Enigma with. That was the whole point of Kurt being born. But the reason why Enigma, the reason I'm kind of, that last paragraph, I'm kind of the most iffy on. Okay. Because Enigma gets so much out of Kurt's birth. Like, he gets so much out of the Hope Sword existing, not only because the Hope Sword is, it helps facilitate the end of the sins of Sinister, and helps Mother Righteous, do her ascendancy so that Enigma could then ascend. But it's also, the Hope Sword was essential in killing the Phoenix Force, which is like one of the only two threats to Enigma in the Marvel universe. And so it's kind of one of those weird things where on the face of it, because I kind of initially jumped to the idea that Destiny's basically trying to kill Enigma with Kurt, and that was the whole thing. But it's like, because Enigma gets so much out of Kurt's birth and subsequent existence, like, is this one of those things where Destiny was the one who initially came up with the idea, Enigma then found out, and then decided to just leverage the situation? Was this something where Enigma knew from the very start and was basically just using Destiny? Or was this something where Destiny and Enigma came together on, and then, but for their own unique reasons? And,
I like the third one the best, and that makes sense to me because of how we've seen that she's interacted with Sinisters in the past. Like, she's clearly not above working with other people that are, that could become trouble in the long term, but might have some short-term gain that she can leverage.
Well, and then the other point that I have on this is because Enigma did benefit so much, I kind of question whether Enigma also may have messed with Kurt's genetics as well and made himself a potential father figure.
Oh my God,
not father figure, but a potential biological. Yeah, but specifically, I bring that up because so Enigma's whole thing is that he could see across all of space and time and whatever have you, but he may have seen his demise through the Phoenix Force, by the Phoenix Force, because that the whole thing came down to whether it was Enigma who was the father of hope, or whether it was the Phoenix who was the father of hope. And so it could also be that Enigma, seeing that there was a possibility that he might have been eliminated by the Phoenix Force, may have slipped something in with Nightcrawler so that he could then come back again.
Okay. I
realize I'm kind of looking like Charlie from Always Sunny in
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
No, but so there's, again, it sounds crazy what you're saying, but there are little things. So again, remind me if I'm incorrect, but wasn't Kurt like one of the only ones who couldn't get brainwashed by Sinister?
Yes.
And that's why they had to turn him into a dragon?
Yes.
Like, right? Yeah.
So
like,
yeah, because the whole thing was that, well, and it wasn't Sinister who turned Kurt into a dragon. That was actually Margali's curse.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it was actually Margali who kind of caused that whole thing to happen, where it basically barred Sinister from using Kurt. But I think that Kurt was absolutely specifically targeted for that reason, to prevent Sinister from getting his paws on it and realizing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The tool or the weapon that he is. And it adds, all of this just adds so many layers to this character that we have all loved for, however many years that we've loved him. And, it's weird to think that, this really does kind of simplify him into he was born or he was bred to be a weapon against something. But as a character, like there's like Wolverine was very clearly made to be a weapon, and that's his whole deal. He was made to be a weapon. Even Deadpool was made to be a weapon. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like Kurt is the opposite of that. Like so far on the opposite of that, and it's just
well, and there is a certain amount of irony that a god killer, or a quote unquote god killer, being who could kill a god, or the closest thing in Marvel comics at this point, because they're going to escalate again to the next level or whatever.
Of course.
But a god killer who is God, not necessarily God loving, but no, God loving, I think is the right term. Like he is.
Yeah, he's very much. I mean, he's obviously
he's a religious,
he's Catholic, for God's sake.
Yeah, he's Catholic. So,
but yeah, I mean, I
there was a certain amount of poetry in that.
Yeah,
he grew up to being the absolute opposite from what he was intended to be.
Right. And that speaks so much to who his character is today, which is very much defying the odds, defying how people see him as a monster, defying that, oh, yes, there are all these terrible things in the world. And, right, we're not going to deny there's terrible things in the world. And you can still do great things, and you can still do all these positive things and be helpful and all these great things. So, yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Oh, another point, backtracking a little bit to the Doctor Strange angle from when he and Xavier met. Another thing I thought of was that maybe one of the reasons why Doctor Strange either wasn't able to help or didn't help was because the Vishanti prevented him. Because if the Vishanti, so think of it this way. If Kurt's whole thing is that he is designed to kill Dominion level threats, I can imagine that the Vishanti and other powerful magical entities wouldn't exactly want Kurt running around wholesale, like where he could potentially like kill, because obviously he would also be a threat to them as well. So that might have been a measure of self-preservation on the part of something like the Vishanti or the Living Tribunal or some other entity of that level.
I'm like still thinking about the whole God killer thing, and
the
idea of him, like he's. But
I thought I would just bring that up real quick.
No, it's fine, and it's all of this adds different layers and different things to kind of think about. But when it comes to like the God killer part, like you said, there is that irony of like a man of God being the God killer. However, there's something very Catholic about killing other people's gods.
That is also true. Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh no, never.
Exactly. So it's just, there's just something very Christian about that part. It's like, there's this man of God, and he's out to kill. Like that was the first thing the Christians did when they took over the Roman Empire was, or when, Christians took over the Roman Empire, was to destroy all of the, messages or statues and idols of the Olympian gods. So it's kind of what you do.
Oh yeah. Well, and kind of building on you've pointed out a couple of times that there are different layers to this. Like we haven't even touched on like the whole soul sword aspect of this theory and how that whole situation plays into this, because
we might have to have you come back, because this is starting to get a little long. We might have to have you come back for a second episode to talk about the soul sword, because I would definitely do that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
1000%.
Yeah, no, but this has been fascinating. I mean, Lauren, do you have any like last minute thoughts before we pack it up?
No, I mean, I agree. And I think especially because this theory is really like a bunch of theories in one, and there's so much to dissect. I feel like like I think doing it in multiple parts is great because it'll give our listeners time because I'm going to put the link to at least the Reddit post where you put it all out. I'm going to put a link to that so people can read it. Yeah, so people can read that. I still have it pulled up here. And then that way they can read it. And then when we come back, I'm sure we'll have some listeners that actually we'll have some questions too that maybe we can bring to you to help answer and things like that. But yeah, I think it's really cool. And I think it does add more layers of Kurt. And yeah, I say why not explore the magic with Kurt because he's magical whether people want to make it literal or not. So
yeah, absolutely. So
exactly. And I think what I really appreciate about this theory just in general is it's very well researched and it's very thoughtful in that, you know, there's very few things in this theory that you hand wave. You know what I mean? Like there's very little yada, yada, yada. It's just, you know, it's very thoughtful of kind of everything and all the canon that's come before it. And even the canon that's still happening. I think that's what makes it such a good theory, you know, is that it really makes sense. And it's exciting. It's exciting to think about like what could happen with our character next. But you know, never know. It's like the next writer comes and then they decide that, Kurt's a priest again. So who knows?
Oh, you know.
Exactly.
So, yeah. The biggest problem with this theory is obviously the writing on Marvel. And, you know, I'm not in any, I have no expectations of seeing this being made into reality anytime soon. Although I would absolutely love it if it was, but you know.
Yeah. Right. You never know what's going to hapen, but thank you so much for joining us. This was such a pleasure. It took us a little while to get you on. I know because I'm, the worst at everything. But
we're both dying. It's both our faults. Lisa's not allowed to take full credit.
No, we got a lot. We just got a lot of stuff happening personally.
Oh, it's completely understandable.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody online find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me. Obviously, I am on Reddit. 3MonthsTooLate. So you can find me there. I also have. I actually don't have all that much else that you guys can reach me with, but yeah, that's Reddit is probably the best way to reach me.
Awesome.
So,
everybody go find him and like tell him if he's right or wrong. He's probably right, but just, tell him what you want.
Start some good conversations. I think that's what it's all about is just talking more about Kurt. Any other outlets we can have to talk about Kurt.
Anything. Exactly. And then that will hopefully bring up the conversation of Nocturne and then I'm in. I'm all about it. So
okay.
Well, thank you guys again so much. And Lauren, where can we find you, girl?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at friendlymBHDBI. And if you click the link there, you'll find my other stuff. So yeah, that's where I am.
Awesome. And, you can find the rest of us, all of us on simplyamazingpod.com. That's got all of our socials. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook. I don't know. We're on all of them, but mostly we just on Twitter. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And again, we are so thrilled to have 3 Months Too Late here. That was so much fun. We're definitely going to have you back to talk about the Soul Sword.
All right.
Yeah, we can't wait. But yeah, if you are out there listening and you are thinking to yourself, shit, I'm 3 months too late. Girl, you're pregnant, but it's okay. You're still beautiful and you're simply amazing.